Scotch Challenger Lifetime Achievement Award was conferred on Dr. Deepak B. Phatak for his message of Atmanirbharta, the same message that the Honorable Prime Minister has shared with the country today, 18 years later, but the spirit is still the same, and no less than Dr. Phatak, the great man who has always promoted for self-sufficiency in high technology in India, has joined us. May I invite Dr. Phatak to share some opening remarks and then help us moderate the panels that follow. Dr. Phatak.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much. There is not much to add on what has already been said. It's a very exciting event, and like all others, I'm also looking forward to get the nuggets of wisdom from our participants. I have no doubt that everybody attending has in mind that how to set this actual action on the agenda of Atmanirbharta. So without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Varun Chatterjee. Varun is an exciting young man after studying in Lucknow and Delhi and then studying in National University of Singapore. I had visited that a long time ago to see their startup business, which he actually, startup incubator of which he was a part. He has been almost a serial entrepreneur, I would call him. And I would request him to share his thoughts with us. I would request the panelists to be brief, about 5 to 6 minutes, so that there is some time for wrap-up. Thank you so much. Over to you, Varun.
Yeah, before Varun starts, sir, the reason we chose Varun is that, he's been a serial entrepreneur 3 times.
Yes.
And successfully so.
Yes.
Unfortunately, all 3 times he's been successful. He had to go to Singapore to be successful.
Yes, that is the sad part.
I always had, why could he not do it in India? So I asked him, come and tell us why.
Good.
Varun.
Sure. So let me just start off with a very brief background. I came to Singapore in 2000 and I went to the National University of Singapore and I graduated in computer science. And after that, during that period of time, I was involved in a university program called NUS Overseas Colleges, which was promoting entrepreneurship at that time. So my perspectives are really kind of my involvement from the Singapore entrepreneurship perspective. But in my first startup, which was 10Cube, we also opened a development center in India. So it's not like I am completely alien to the challenges faced by entrepreneurs in India. So in this short talk, I would like to focus on a few things that I feel that are, of course, Singapore is a small, it's like a red dot. It's a city state. The challenges of India are much bigger, but at the same time, I think there are certain things that from Singapore that are interesting, and I would like to share those things with you. So, as I was saying, Singapore has this problem where, it's a small place, people are wealthy, and people leave Singapore. So how does Singapore retain talent? How does Singapore go about promoting entrepreneurship and promoting involvement in the public sector? When people are wealthy, they can afford education other places as well. So in that sense, some of the interesting things that Singapore has done is that they have this scholarship, which is where people from Singapore, Singaporeans, go abroad. They can study in any school of their choice. And then they come back and they join the public service in Singapore. The other thing that I have been very close to is the NUS Overseas Colleges program. And in this program, basically, students are sent abroad. I personally spent 1 year in the US at Stanford. And there they work at a startup, and then they come back and bring those thoughts and values back to Singapore. And that's how I started my first company, actually. So this is an interesting thing because, like in India, as growing up in the 90s, there was most of the impetus is on bhedchal, right? It's more like you join an engineering degree, or you join a lawyer, you become an engineer, you become a lawyer, you could become a chartered accountant. Entrepreneurship, as a teenager, is something that you are completely not exposed to, or at least were not exposed to when I was growing up in India. So I feel that this is the first step at starting at the educational level to inculcate and put the thought of entrepreneurship in students as a career path. So I feel this is one of the things that I call nurturing the Atma. So nobody on their own has thoughts. So you have to kind of put some of these thoughts in people's minds as well. The second thing is, after you have maybe tried to go into entrepreneurship, there was a talk earlier about collateral-based capital in India, and how do you actually get capital to do a startup? And there's also talk about tender versus innovation in terms of like how do you actually get government participation and things like that. So some of the things that happened in my journey that I'm happy to share is that I participate, like there are these, even at the university level for students, with just the seed of an idea, there is funding available. And up to $30,000, just as a student, you can explore entrepreneurship. And then it culminates with a startup at Singapore business plan competition where you can win. And then that opens up to, more grants from the government that are available to you. And an interesting part about these grants is that they are awarded, like if the organization is working with an enterprise, or if the organization is working with the government, that's when these grants actually kick in. So they're the proof of concept, proof of value for commercialization of innovative strategies. So innovative technology. So if you are actually successful in having an organization believe in your technology, that's when those grants kick in. And the government involvement in the decision-making process is mostly left to the organization that is actually adopting this. So this is interesting. Another interesting thing is when we talk about collateral-based funding, there are a lot of commercial, there are a lot of convertible note-based capital also available, where the government actually provides you investment in the form of a convertible note, and any future investor can buy out that convertible note at only a 10% premium. So that convertible note, which is initially starts off as debt, earns the government 10% interest, which is nothing in the high-tech entrepreneurship space. And the next investor can come and buy that out, and that converts to equity. So that's an interesting thing as well. So the other thing I would like to emphasize is the global network. So NUS has built incubators in San Francisco, in Jakarta, in a variety of locations. And once you have a startup, you have grown, you've raised some funding, these incubators provide you opportunity to go outside of Singapore. Of course, India itself is a huge market. So a lot of these things may be replicated in terms of instead of an international context, you could have it in a national type of context where you have incubators in different states where you can possibly expand from a university point of view. So with that point, I'd like to come to the final thing, which is the tax benefits and what is so attractive. And I think this is really, what brings entrepreneurs to Singapore is that capital gains are completely tax-free in Singapore. So if an entrepreneur starts a company in Singapore, which is subsequently acquired by another company or has an IPO, the entrepreneur will know they don't pay any tax at all. And that is what has brought people like Eduardo Saverin, who is co-founder of Facebook as well, to Singapore. He resides in Singapore. So those are kind of my 5 points. Of course, I understand that, the intent, inclusion, investment, infrastructure, innovation, which are cited as pillars of revival for economic growth. These are huge concepts, and India is much bigger than Singapore. And I'm much of a smaller player when it comes to the other distinguished panelists here. But that is the perspective that I would like to share. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Varun. I would like to mention a couple of things. I hope the government functionaries attending this are noting carefully the advantages that young entrepreneurs have in Singapore. There is absolutely no reason or rhyme why a similar thing cannot be created in India. There have been some efforts, but not much. The second point I would like to make is just notice how humble Varun is in spite of doing such great things there. So thank you very much, Varun. I really appreciate your participation. We'll come back if there are any questions. Let me go over now to Sri Anand Kinnal, who is our second speaker. He's a co-founder and director at Caligo Technologies. And unlike Varun, who has to work from Singapore, Anand is based in Bangalore and works in, provides products and services in high power computing, big data and analytics. Very, very critical technologies in these days. So let us hear from Anand. Over to you, Anand.
Good morning, everybody. And so as I mentioned, from Caligo Technologies, I'm a co-founder and director working on system-on-chip development for using some new technology called POSIT, and I'm going to go over the details of this. If you can see my screen, so I'm talking about the problem that we are trying to address. And so the floating point is a number system that has been in existence since a very long time, almost about 35, 40 years now. And the lot of disadvantages with floating point number system are inconsistent results and different results from run to run. As you can see on the right side of the screen, it also produces different results on different systems. So I'm not sure if many of you have observed, but these are the kind of problems that exist. It's an inflexible and a rigid number system, which means you have to use only 16 bits or 32 bits or 64 bits. And because of which it becomes a very highly power inefficient number system. So the technology that we are working on is something called a POSIT-enabled computing using technology that we have created called CRISP core, which is actually a Caligo's CRISP-V processor with POSIT-enabled coprocessor. So the advantages of POSITs are it's actually a much higher accurate POSIT number system. It has much higher dynamic range for the same number of bits compared to floating point. POSIT produces consistent results across systems, and it is highly flexible. Use just enough number of bits for a given application. That is why it actually brings a very highly power efficient logic for implementing something like this. So now if they're talking about, imagine all the computers in the world being twice as fast, using half the energy at half the price, and that is what is the power of POSITs actually. So this is a fairly new invention and done by Dr. John Gustafson. He's an American mathematician, truly creating a revolution in computing. And so Dr. John Gustafson actually is on the board of advisors for Caligo Technologies since 2017. POSIT actually can be adopted across key verticals, and there's a whole list of things that are there with this. And it is also being widely adopted by multiple MNCs, and so the list of the companies are here. But the most predominant one is Huawei is actually building 5G chipset using POSIT. So this is a very important information. And we have a serious competition because there are many startups in the world working on POSITs. So time is the essence. So about our system on chip, POSIT-enabled computing, it will actually power devices across segments, mobile, laptop, desktop, and servers. So we have to make a beginning. And so we are actually trying to create a system on a chip based on RISC-V architecture. This is a microprocessor architecture which is adopted by India. RISC-V and POSIT number system are both open source architectures, so there's no royalties involved. That is the beauty of this. And to make it a complete system level solution, we have enhanced our C++ compilers to support native POSIT computing. So, which means there are no modifications needed to the source code at all. And so we can actually build many SoCs for Indian defense, aerospace, 5G, etc., using this as the enabling core for fundamentally. RISC-V based designs powering mobiles is expected to come out in the market in less than 2 years, and server CPUs in less than 4 years. So this is a local design with a very high impact and very high potential to sell in the global markets. So far, these are the kind of things that have happened as far as this development is concerned. At Supercomputing Conference 17, we were selected for Emerging Technologies track about disruptive technology. And after that, in about a year's time, we actually created a co-processor which can do POSIT-enabled computing, and we demonstrated this at Supercomputing Asia, a Singapore event in March 2018. Consequently, we cannot just sell the co-processor. We teamed up with a processor company called BlueSpec. They also give tools for developing a CPU environment. And so we teamed up with them, and we created our CRISP core, and we demonstrated our CRISP core in Zurich at a RISC-V workshop last year, almost at the same time. And we also demonstrated HIPC and VLSI conferences in India. Now, to top it all, actually, SAFL is a Karnataka government initiative where they incubate companies. And so we are glad to say that we are the very first company to sign up with SAFL. We're using, because of this, we get access to the EDA tools, shuttle for silicon manufacturing and post-silicon activities for testing and things like that. So in terms of market opportunities, this is actually very wide because the computing is such an important basic requirement everywhere. So Singapore, Australia, Japan, Europe, UK, many of these actually are already working on POSIT-enabled some design or the other, in some form or the other. And so there are global efforts that are happening since 2016. Predominantly on the bottom left, you see actually Facebook has actually produced papers about POSIT. And there's also Tokyo Institute of Technology, which has actually talked about building accelerators using POSIT technology. And there are many others actually as captured, including Oxford University on the top left and all that. So in terms of, there's a growing application adoption. So one of the most important things is end-to-end deep learning compiler stack that has been developed by University of Washington, and it's called PVM. That is actually adopting POSITs, and all the rest on this foil are actually related to HPC and how HPC, high performance computing, can actually benefit from POSITs. So there's a global R&D working on this with different universities, as the names are there, University of Washington predominantly, and National Institute of Singapore, and the others on the screen. Calico Technologies is found by a high caliber team. We are technologists with international experiences in US, France, Australia, Singapore, and we have returned back to India to do some things in India and for India. And the time is now, and it's a very opportune moment for us. So you can see the list of companies where we have worked. And so as I mentioned, the advisory team, Dr. John Gustafson, the inventor of POSITs, actually is on the board of advisors. And Dr. Theodore Omzik is actually a US-based doctorate who's also helping us out with POSITs. About Calico Technologies itself, we are a HPC and AI company, and a lot of awards and accolades that we have got, including from Intel and so some of the other things that have happened in the world. So you can take a look at the list of awards that we have received. And so to summarize, POSIT-enabled computing actually to power devices across the segments. So mobile, laptop, desktop, servers, all of these actually require computing, and all this computing can be enabled using what we have built. And so we have built the basic building block called the CRISP core, using which we can actually develop multi-core processors from all the way from 2 to maybe even 1024 cores, targeting the HPC market and the AI markets. So it's a great opportunity for India because we've been talking about billions of dollars of foreign exchange flowing out because of chips and things like that. So this is an excellent opportunity. And our design is going to be the first POSIT-enabled CPU in the world, and it's actually proudly made in India for the world market. So as I mentioned, we are first incubating with SAFL. It's a Karnataka government initiative. So help has come from the state government. And when we're looking at help for the remaining part of the funding, foreign investors who are interested, they want to take away IP rights and they want to take majority stake in the company. So this is where we need immediate help from the center for funding, to build engineering samples, and later for high volume manufacturing, so that we can go global with this local development. So this is actually a key step, actually making Atmanirbhar Bharat in electronics and computers, and I think it's a very, very right time for us, because we have we're competing technologies with the world companies. So thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity, and I'll be willing to take questions anytime.
May I request you to kindly sum up the first panel for the panelists who've joined maybe later? Specifically what Varun said and the good work that Ananta...
Yes. I mean, it is truly amazing. So for all the participants of the conference, of the summit, let me say that we were looking at how to make ourselves Atmanirbhar. In that context, there were two major points. Number one, to become a greater facilitator for such efforts. Varun actually did much of his initiatives in Singapore, because primarily he found that Singapore offered better facilitation for his efforts as an entrepreneur than India did at that point in time. So this point is to be noted, and I had requested the government functionaries attending this conference to please make a note of what NSU offers for the startup environment there. The second panelist, Anand, who has done an absolutely fantastic work on a cutting-edge technology. For those of you who are not connected with technology, let me tell you that this is one of the best efforts I have seen anywhere globally. And he has done this effort in Karnataka. I'm particularly appreciative of the Safal initiative of the Karnataka government, and I hope that that effort is replicated across the country in other states as well. The few points which still are of concern is the availability of Indian funding, so that our Indian entrepreneurs are able to continue to work without the worry of losing either the majority share or their decision-making capability. But great effort by both of them, and it is a representative of the new era entrepreneurs who are coming up now. All the best for them, and thank you, Scott, for...
May I request specifically, Varun, if you could talk about what are the benefits, specific benefits you're getting in Singapore? And I would, after that, request people from Caligo to talk about what is it that they need from India. This is for the benefit of Mr. Ashwani Mahajan, who is leading the call for Swadeshi in Swadeshi Jagran Manch. And I'm sure he will take these messages back to the government. So Varun, if you would take a minute and specifically on capital gains, etc., if you could explain what India
Sure. So first of all, I'd like to start with it was very interesting to learn what Caligo Tech is doing, and we are in a very similar space. 7 Sense, we are doing machine learning and AI on power constrained, low compute devices. And we are actually funded, like the level of support that we get from the Singapore government, we are actually funded by the Ministry of Defense in Singapore. They have a statutory board called Capvista, which is an investor in our company. So in terms of the funding available for entrepreneurs in Singapore, it is quite interesting that it starts right from the student level to seed stage, to growth stage, to even and that is, I think, something that I have not seen. Like in India, you hear about the big success stories of funding are from like DFJ or Sequoia or Tencent or Alibaba. Even my first startup, 10Cube, was actually funded by 197, which you all know is the company behind Paytm. And of course, they are funded by Tencent. So what is the state of capital that is available to startups? I mean, that is a very and in terms of being Atmanirbhar, like where does that capital come from? Does it come from outside India? Does it come from within India? So those are some of the things in terms of even for loans and MSMEs, if they're taking loans, as I mentioned. if they are collateral based, then there are like some very interesting things that the Singapore government is also doing in terms of like, as I mentioned earlier, providing a convertible note. So this is debt, but it has only like maybe 10% interest. And when a successive round of investment takes place, that debt can convert to equity for the new investor. So the government gets some return on investment, plus that whole debt becomes equity. So that is something that I would like to kind of highlight over here. Apart from that, I can share from my experiences of setting up a development center in India for my first startup, TenCube, which was subsequently acquired by McAfee, which was subsequently acquired by Intel. So we started off setting up a center in Noida and hiring like 15 people out of there. And this was back in 2008 or so. And I think the biggest challenges that we faced were like, finding the appropriate office space. Of course, now it's everything has changed with co-location spaces readily available and things like that. So to sum it up, I think, like the high level impetus by the government is great, but at the same time, like how do you nurture entrepreneurship from grassroots levels, right? I mean, and we are talking about high-tech entrepreneurship, not, India has a high entrepreneurship index because, like you have everyone, selling things from thela walas to, small shops and all that. But how do you foster this, high-tech entrepreneurship where you have like growth trajectories that are non-organic? Indian companies have been known for organic growth that have gone from like over a decade, 2 decades of growth, and now they are big companies. But how do you jumpstart companies to go on trajectories that are the trajectories of the likes of Facebook, the trajectories of the likes of Google, the trajectories of the likes of Alibaba? And if you look at, like the big unicorns in India, where is their funding coming from? Their funding, most of it is not coming from within India. It's coming from outside India. So when it comes to Atmanirbharta, I think there are quite a few things, even in terms of like yesterday I was watching like NDTV and, they were talking about boycotting Chinese goods and all that. But how is that even feasible? Like from an economical standpoint, there is so much interdependence with other countries. So, while it is a noble idea, I feel that, the real challenges from a high-tech entrepreneurship perspective, which is basically fundamentally the lack of, internal funding, the lack of, supportive ecosystems, the lack of government involvement in the process. So, for example, our startup is funded by the Ministry of Defense, and we are working with, various organizations with the Singapore government.
That would be Ministry of Defense of Singapore, right? Not India.
Yes, Singapore. Yeah. So obviously, I mean, that's what I'm trying to highlight, that there are mechanisms that the Singapore government has adopted for startups to engage with the government and the government to engage with startups. And those are the mechanisms that I feel like, starting from putting the idea of entrepreneurship in a student's head to promoting his journey all the way to an exit, that make Singapore a country worth looking at when it comes to self-supporting ecosystems.
So thank you, Varun. With that, I'd like to bring in Ananta Kindle for a moment. अश्विनी जी, आपने और स्मिता जी ने काफी समय से जिक्र किया है of India's dependence on chips of semiconductors on countries outside India like China. Now, as Dr. Phatak mentioned and others have mentioned, there is this company in Bangalore called Caligo Technologies. They have done some path-breaking work in chip development, and they need some little amount of money to do a prototype. And this chip can practically be a world-beating product. They are not getting it. So Anand, will you please explain what is it that you've developed and why do you need money and why are you not getting it?
Definitely, Mr. Kocha, thank you so much. Definitely, innovations are actually necessary for things to get better, cheaper, and power efficient. And this is exactly one of such technologies, which is a groundbreaking technology that addresses all these concerns about a chip. And so very importantly, when something like this actually gets innovated, there is a lot of resistance in the beginning to see, what is
I think we have an audio challenge, but to sum it up, Ashwini जी, ये वो हिंदुस्तान के इकोसिस्टम में इतना ज्यादा जुड़ी हुई हैं कि जब उनको दिखता है कि इंडिया एक चिप बना रहा है, तो वो पूरा सरकारी तंत्र और प्राइवेट तंत्र और सारे तंत्र यंत्र यूज करके कोशिश ये करते हैं कि ये लोग मर जाएं, ये ना बना पाए। तो इसकी वजह से इनको कोई 2.5-3 करोड़ रुपए चाहिए, कहीं से नहीं मिल रहा है। With that, I hand the command over to Dr. Phatak to ably steer this.
Thank you so much, Samir. And I take this opportunity to welcome Smita Purushottam and Dr. Ashwini Mahajan. These are well-known names, so actually it will be silly of me to try and introduce them. But I would only like to mention that the work that has been done by both of them is actually extraordinary. Smita has been our ambassador to Venezuela and Switzerland. But most important, she has been the founder and chairperson of Sitara, which is doing absolutely great work. Nothing needs to be said about Dr. Ashwini Mahajan. He has dedicated practically his entire professional life to encourage Indian Swadeshi movement. And I think his work is of a great significance to the current penchant for Atmanirbharta. So without further ado, may I request Smita Purushottam to please share her views.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pathak. Really, I'm flattered and amazed that you've heard of me. Thank you very much. And yeah, and it's a thank you also for inviting me, Mr. Kocher, and yourself, this very prestigious panel. We have, in fact, been very worried about the state of high-tech development in India for many years. And I'm happy to share with you that I've been working with Dr. Mahajan for quite some time on these issues, and we very much value his support to the cause of self-reliance, Atmanirbharta. So basically, we have identified a few key problems, and I would first of all just like to suggest to Mr. Kinal, because my heart goes out to you that you have done this extraordinary work, and any country would be proud, to support it. Please write to the principal scientific advisor, to PMO. We'll share the emails, and we can also follow up with writing to them. And of course, Dr. Ashwini Mahajan, I'm sure, will have much greater weight in this regard. We must not allow any foreign company to take you over, because this is a national treasure, it's a national asset. And very quickly, I'll go into why we feel like that. You see, the problem with India, the Indian economy is of enormous import dependence. And what we've done, to discourage domestic high-tech industry, one could write a book about it. We don't invest in R&D, we make it very difficult for them, we're not giving you funding. This has become a national security peril. And this is what China has taken advantage of, really, because very frankly, we were predicting that this moment would come. They are not here to make friends with us. They are here to derive one-sided economic advantage. And as Dadabhai Nauroji said 1.5 centuries ago, this is a one-way economic drain from India. Now, China has gone ahead in artificial intelligence, in hypersonics, in quantum technologies, in supercomputers. They are almost neck to neck with America today. So if we don't immediately rectify these anomalies in our ecosystem, we are going to be bullied by them. I have a suspicion that it's because Prime Minister heeded the call for self-reliance. This is one of the key reasons. Now China feels profit will not be made in our country. So why not, because they knew what the consequences of their attack in Galwan would be. So I would say, with due apologies to the other panelists who don't feel the same way, that we must start the process of decoupling today from China. This is now a popular movement across the globe. The Americans, the British, the Australians, they're all, the Japanese, everyone is looking at decoupling. And we need to have, in our Indian Foreign Service group, people are calling it a whole in government approach, not whole of government. So we don't need a whole in government approach, we need a whole as in WHOLE. So this is a plea from Sitara, and we need basically a comprehensive policy. I will not bore you with the details. Comprehensive policy is very, very simple. One is, please reform the procurement policy of this country. The reforms have been made, but they're not being implemented. And the OECD, many documents, in fact, our own experience shows that the 26% to 40% boost it can give to the domestic economy. And one high-tech job creates at least 3 to 6, multipliers in the economy. What we can't achieve, supposing, even supposing it's a 10% boost to our economy, public domestic procurement, that means $300 million, and multiply that by 6, and it's 1.8 billion already. So 1.8 trillion. I'm getting my billions and trillions a bit wrong. So domestic procurement, defense industry, we have still not promoted domestic champions. In telecom, we have allowed the Chinese to grab large portions of a telecom network, and today cyber attacks on India are increasing, which is what we've been warning about for a very, very long time. And it has got some traction, but not enough. Finally, we have, I think, the Institute of Industrial Development in Vasant Kunj has come out with a very good monograph on the issue of a vertical industrial policy, which integrates FDI and trade policy. Basically, we've opened up our economy, but we have not given any support to the vulnerable sectors, and electronics imports have boomed. So, with the Singaporean model that we have just heard about, and I can also personally vouch for it. I mean, the kind of care they take of their entrepreneurs, I know of personal instances in this regard. It's quite amazing. From the mental health to everything else, physical comfort, they go out of their way. To the American very interesting model for development of R&D. It's a distributed administrative network. It's not like ours, centralized, sitting on top. I mean, I'm very, very inspired to hear all the wonderful panelists, the awardees that Shri Kochhar has given excellent recognition to for all their fantastic work. And we do have dedicated, honest, wonderful people in our administrative system who are keeping the country running. But we need that kind of distributed network in which every bureaucrat reaches out to high-tech entrepreneurs like Shri Chatterjee and Shri Kinal and helps them, achieve the goal of Atmanirbharta. And today it is a vital national security issue. We have to do this. So any help we can give to you, Mr. Kinal, we'd like to give. I'm not going to exaggerate. We are not that influential, but people have listened to us, especially since everything we said is coming true. And so on the BSNL issue, we had written to PM. On the 5G issue, we asked government to look at Indian entrepreneurs. We have people here. We have people in India who can build 5G, they're not getting a single order for 4G. So we went all out. The 4G ka order to aap log dijiye hi, kyunki they are not paid their dues. They're not given any orders. You have a recipe for the destruction of high-tech India. A country of India's size cannot do without high-tech domestic industry. So any help we can give, anything we can do to support, we will do. Thank you very much. I hope I haven't exceeded the time given to me. I really am very grateful for this opportunity.
Thank you, madam. Actually, your words are very encouraging.
And what I appreciate most is the passion that can be seen on her face and in her words. Thank you so much, Mita, for your participation.
Thank you.
May I now request great Dr. Ashwini to share his thoughts, please.
नमस्कार।
नमस्कार रश्मि।
आदरणीय समीर कोचर जी, हमारी बहन स्मिता पुरुषोत्तम जी, हम लोग मिलकर के खूब काम करते हैं और हम उनसे जो आपने बताया कि पैशन जो है और उससे हम प्रेरणा भी लेते हैं। और हम पिछले काफी लंबे समय से देख रहे हैं कि किस तरह से हमारे देश में सभी प्रकार की प्रतिभाओं के होते हुए भी, सभी प्रकार की टेक्नोलॉजिकल डेवलपमेंट के होते हुए भी, हमारे जो कुल मिलाकर के जो हमारा तंत्र है, उसने हमारे रास्ते में लगातार बाधाएं खड़ी की हैं। और हम देख रहे हैं कि जब से प्रधानमंत्री जी ने आत्मनिर्भर भारत की बात कही है, तो देश में ऐसे बहुत से लोग हैं जो चाहे अनचाहे, जानबूझ करके या बिना समझे इस बात को कहना शुरू हो गए हैं कि चीन से हम आत्मनिर्भर नहीं हो सकते हैं, ये संभव ही नहीं। कल ही मैं एक इंडियन एक्सप्रेस का एक आर्टिकल देख रहा था, उसने बेचारे ने खूब प्रयास किया, मैं बेचारा ही कहूंगा, कि वर्तमान में ऐसी परिस्थितियां बनी हुई हैं कि पूरा देश आत्मनिर्भरता के तरफ, लक्ष्य की तरफ आगे बढ़ने लग गया है। सबने सोच लिया है, सब लोग जानते हैं 135 करोड़ का जो भारत है, इसमें बच्चा जो है वो बहुत बुद्धिमान है। सबको मालूम है कि चीन से 2-3 हजार रुपए में स्मार्टफोन आता है, लेकिन मैं समझता हूँ कि जब हमने 2017 में चीन के खिलाफ अभियान शुरू किया था, तो उस समय लगभग 40-50% लोग थे वो हमारी बातों से सहमत थे, बाकी आधे सहमत नहीं थे। हालांकि डोकलाम हो गया था, चीन बार बार टेररिस्ट को प्रोटेक्ट कर रहा था, उसने सीपीसी भी बनाना शुरू कर दिया था, लेकिन उसके बावजूद भी जो सेंसिटाइज होना चाहिए था देश की जनता को, वो नहीं। लेकिन ये 3 महीने जब से हम लॉकडाउन में बैठे हैं और सबको समझ में आ रहा है कि कैसे इस देश में और पूरी दुनिया में कोरोना को फैलाया गया, तो चाहे कॉन्स्पिरेसी थी या नहीं थी, लेकिन कुल मिलाकर के जिम्मेदारी जो है वो चीन और WHO की है। तो उसके नाते बहुत बड़ी संख्या में लोग जो हैं वो चीन से विमुख हुए हैं। और जब तक ये घटना नहीं हुई थी, जो कुकृत्य चीन ने अभी किया है, उस समय तक 90% लोगों ने ये प्रण ले लिया था कि ये, मैं नहीं कह रहा हूँ, सर्वेस बता रहे हैं कि हम चीन का सामान नहीं खरीदेंगे। और जब से ये कुकृत्य हुआ है, मुझे नहीं लगता कि कोई एक भी व्यक्ति, थोड़े बहुत चीन के भक्त हैं उनको छोड़ करके, देशवासियों में से कोई ऐसा व्यक्ति है जो इस समय चीन के बहिष्कार की बात नहीं कर रहा। आज का जो विषय है कि हाईटेक के क्षेत्र में हमें आत्मनिर्भर होने की जरूरत है। स्मिता जी बहुत लंबे समय से इस विषय को बार बार उठा ही रही हैं कि अपने देश में जो कंपनीज हैं, अपने देश के जो उद्यमी हैं, उन्होंने प्रयास करके बहुत प्रकार की हाईटेक टेक्नोलॉजीज को विकसित किया है। जब हम मिलकर के, आपको याद होगा स्मिता जी, जब हम डिफेंस के संदर्भ में जब बैठ के करते थे और अभी भी करते हैं, तो सबसे बात हमें ध्यान में आई कि हमारे ऐसे कई स्मॉल स्केल और मीडियम स्केल के एंटरप्रेन्योर्स हैं जो वास्तव में अपनी आईपी जिन्होंने डेवलप की है। जब ये 74% FDI इन डिफेंस की बात आई, तो सबसे पहला प्रश्न हम लोगों ने सरकार से यही पूछा कि व्हाट विल हैपन टू द आईपी डेवलप्ड बाय आवर इंडिजिनियस एंटरप्रेन्योर्स। तो जो ये नैरेटिव खड़ा करने की कोशिश की जाती है कि हम अपने देश में डिफेंस इक्विपमेंट्स बन ही नहीं सकते हैं, हमारे देश में ऐसे हजारों एंटरप्रेन्योर्स हैं जो न केवल बनाते हैं बल्कि एक्सपोर्ट करते हैं। ये डिफेंस की बात हुई। हमने कहा कि मेडिकल इक्विपमेंट्स में अपना देश आत्मनिर्भर नहीं है। जैसे ही ये कोरोना का संकट आया, तो लोगों ने कहा कि हम PPE किट्स नहीं बनाते, हम टेस्टिंग किट्स नहीं बनाते, हमारे पास वेंटिलेटर्स नहीं हैं, बना ही नहीं सकते हैं, IP नहीं है, वगैरह वगैरह बातें होनी शुरू हो गई। उसी समय किरण मजूमदार शॉ ने एक ट्वीट किया कि आप वेंटिलेटर्स की बात कर रहे हैं, हमारे देश में एक स्कैनरे नाम की कंपनी है जो 5000 वेंटिलेटर्स हर महीने बनाती है। तो एकदम से सब लोग चौंक गए, ये 5000 वेंटिलेटर्स बनाने वाली हमारे ही देश की कंपनी कौन है? तो वो हमारे मित्र हैं, उनका नाम है अल्वा विश्व प्रसाद। तो मैसूर की एक कंपनी है, उसको वो चलाते हैं। एक बार मैं किसी कार्यक्रम के सिलसिले में मैसूर गया था, तो वो मुझे जबरदस्ती किडनैप करके अपनी कंपनी में लेके गए थे। मुझे दिखाना चाहते थे कि मैं क्या क्या करता हूँ। तो उन्होंने मुझे बताया कि मैं सिर्फ सीटी स्कैन की मशीन को छोड़ करके बाकी सब मशीन्स बनाता हूँ, वेंटिलेटर्स बनाता हूँ, तमाम प्रकार की सभी एक्सरे मशीन बनाता हूँ। ऐसी एक्सरे मशीन जो गाँवों में तीन दिन भी अगर लाइट चली जाए तो उसके बावजूद भी वो चलती रहती, उसके साथ जो जुड़ा हुआ पावर पैक है। यानी और यहाँ भारत सरकार के लोगों को पता ही नहीं है कि हमारे यहाँ वेंटिलेटर्स बनते हैं। तो जब मैंने उनसे कहा कि आपका वेंटिलेटर्स का है काम, तो आप 5000 वेंटिलेटर से काम नहीं चलेगा, हमें ज्यादा चाहिए। उन्होंने कहा कि मैं ये अपनी आईपी जो है, अपना डिजाइन फ्री में सबको देने के लिए तैयार हूँ, जो भी इसके लिए सक्षम। तो उन्होंने बेल को वो डिजाइन दिया, उन्होंने महिंद्रा को वो डिजाइन दिया, और आज ये स्थिति बनी है कि मात्र 2 महीने में हमारे यहाँ 50,000 वेंटिलेटर्स बनके तैयार हैं, जो प्राइम मिनिस्टर केयर फंड से डिस्ट्रीब्यूट किए गए हैं। हमारा ये कहना है कि हम PSLV बना सकते हैं, हम एक बार में 104 सैटेलाइट्स अंतरिक्ष में स्थापित कर सकते हैं, हम एटम बम बना सकते हैं, मिसाइल बना सकते हैं। ये सारी चीजें प्रिसीजन मांगती हैं। हम पूरे दुनिया भर के लिए सॉफ्टवेयर तैयार कर सकते हैं, ये सब प्रिसीजन के काम है, ऐसा नहीं है, सामान्य बात नहीं। तो हम क्या चिप्स नहीं बना सकते? हमारी कंपनी ने बनाया, लेकिन अब आपको यहाँ से वहाँ सरकारी दफ्तरों में दौड़ना पड़ रहा है, और फिर आप किसी ना किसी समय आपके ऊपर कोई चाइनीज इन्वेस्टर आएगा, वो कहेगा मैं आपको 10 करोड़ देने के लिए तैयार हूँ, ये डिजाइन मुझे दे दीजिए, या आपके स्टार्टअप में मुझे 70% हिस्सा दे दीजिए, 80% हिस्सा दे दीजिए, और मैं आपको फंड करता हूँ। इस प्रकार की स्थितियां बनी। मेरा यहाँ कहना है कि 2001 से जब से चीन ने हमारे देश के आर्थिक तंत्र पर कब्जा करना शुरू किया, nobody has failed us. It is the government of India. हमारी सरकारें, उन्होंने हमें फेल किया है, क्योंकि सारा देश चिल्ला कर कह रहा था कि हमारे देश पर ये कब्जा कर रहे हैं। अब आप ये देखिए कि कुछ 12-13 साल पहले हम API सारे हम बनाते, 90% APIs. Today we are dependent up to the tune of 90% of the APIs coming from abroad, 70% of them coming from China. Why? Because they had been dumping their API. And it's a fact. And after we got dependent on China, now they have started exploiting us. They have increased the price of folic acid by 13 times, by the amoxicillin by 3 times, and so on. तो क्या हम अपने देश को एक्सप्लॉइट होने देंगे? तो हमारा ये कहना है, मैं अंतिम बात अपनी कहूंगा स्टार्टअप्स की फंडिंग के बारे में। ये बात सही है कि चाइना ने बहुत फंडिंग किया है, और आपको ये भी समझना होगा कि अगर फंडिंग होने के बाद वो स्टार्टअप चलाई चाइना के पास चला जाए, तो उसमें फिर रहा क्या? फिर उसमें इंडिजिनाइज क्या है? फिर उसमें भारत का क्या है? कुछ भी नहीं बचा। वो कंपनी अल्टीमेटली चीन की कंपनी हो गई, और हमारे युवाओं की जो प्रतिभा है उसका चीन ने लाभ उठा लिया। और मुझे तो ऐसी भी सूचनाएं हैं कि हमारी वेल रन कंपनीज को जानबूझ करके चाइनीज फंडिंग के माध्यम से पहले खरीदा गया और उनको बाद में किल किया गया, ताकि किसी भी प्रकार का कंपटीशन चाइनीज सामान के साथ न रहे। ऐसे में हमें हाईटेक के क्षेत्र में, चाहे वो API है, चाहे वो इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स है, चाहे वो दूसरी चीजें हैं, इन सब में हमें, जैसे सरकार 3000 करोड़ रुपए का API का
एक पैकेज लेकर के आई है। हम हमेशा कह रहे थे, आवाज कोई कठिनाई है क्या?
नहीं, ठीक आ रही है बिल्कुल।
क्योंकि एक मैसेज अभी आया है।
नहीं, बिल्कुल ठीक है।
तो हमें इस संदर्भ में विचार करना पड़ेगा कि जो भी हमारी हाईटेक है उसको हम अपने देश में विकसित भी करें, और जहां संभव ना हो, मेरा देश 100 साल के लिए वेट नहीं कर सकता, 10 साल के लिए भी वेट नहीं कर सकता, 5 साल के लिए भी वेट नहीं कर सकता, 1 साल के लिए भी वेट नहीं कर सकता। अगर टेक्नोलॉजी हमारे पास है, विकसित हो गई है तो ठीक है, नहीं तो हम विदेश से भी टेक्नोलॉजी खरीद सकते हैं। आज हमारे पास 450 बिलियन डॉलर का जो फॉरेन एक्सचेंज रिजर्व्स हैं। जैसे आल्वा विश्व प्रसाद ने, मैसूर की उस कंपनी ने दुनिया भर के पेटेंट खरीद लिए, इसलिए कि उसको अपने देश में उत्पादन को बढ़ाना था, और इसको हम टेक्नो नेशनलिज्म कहते हैं। तो चाहे खुद हम टेक्नोलॉजी विकसित करें, चाहे हमारे स्टार्टअप्स टेक्नोलॉजी विकसित करें। मैं जो भी स्टार्टअप अभी यहाँ पर जिन्होंने बात की, मैं इसके बाद उनका नंबर लेकर के बात करूंगा। हमारे देश में बहुत बड़ी संख्या में भारतीय फंड्स भी हैं। कई लोग हमसे बात करते हैं, लेकिन भारतीय फंड्स के साथ भारत सरकार सौतेला व्यवहार करती है। मैं बड़ी जिम्मेदारी के साथ ये बात करता हूँ। उनके साथ उनको जो इनकम टैक्स, उनको जो टैक्स ट्रीटमेंट है, और जो विदेशी फंड्स के साथ जो टैक्स ट्रीटमेंट है, उसमें बहुत भिन्नता है। ऐसी इस बात को भी हम सरकार के सामने रखने जा रहे हैं। यानी अगर विदेशी फंड को आधा टैक्स लगता है और भारतीय फंड को उससे डबल लगता है, तो भारतीय फंड की जो इकोनॉमिक कैलकुलेशन होगी वो बिगड़ जाएगी। तो इसलिए हमें सबको लेवल प्लेइंग फील्ड देना पड़ेगा, और खासतौर पर चाइनीज फंड्स को तो हमें डिस्क्वालीफाई करना पड़ेगा। हमने कहा है कि जैसे हमने टेंडर्स में कहा है कि विदेशी चाइनीज फर्म्स को हमें डिस्क्वालीफाई करना चाहिए, चाहे कोई भी आधार बना करके किया जाए, चाहे वो सिक्योरिटी हो, चाहे वो कोई भी कारण हो, हमें उसको इसी प्रकार से हमारे फंड्स जो चाइनीज फंड्स हैं उनको भी डिस्क्वालीफाई करना चाहिए, और विदेशी फंड्स जितने दूसरे फंड्स हैं उनके साथ भारतीय फंड्स का इक्वल टैक्स ट्रीटमेंट होना चाहिए। ऐसे कई फंड्स मैनेजर्स हैं, ऐसे कई लोग हैं जो इंडस्ट्रियल हाउसेस हैं जिन्होंने ये फंड्स बनाए हुए हैं, वो लोग हमसे बात करते रहते हैं। मैं टीवीएस की बात कर रहा हूँ, उन्होंने भी हमसे बात की है। तो ऐसे उन सब से हम भारत के जो स्टार्टअप्स हैं उनको लिंकअप कर सकते हैं। तो मुझे लगता है कि आगे का भविष्य भारत का है, ये सदी भारत की है, और हम आगे बढ़ेंगे। और कोरोना ने एक संकट तो आया है, लेकिन एक अवसर दिया है कि हम एक, जिसको हम नी जर्क कहते हैं, वैसी स्थिति बनी है। तो एक नी जर्क के नाते, नी जर्क ऐसा नहीं है कि भारत के लोगों ने अचानक अभी बहिष्कार की कॉल दी और कल भूल जाएंगे, ऐसा नहीं है। ये एक लॉन्ग टर्म प्लान को लेकर के हम आगे बढ़ेंगे। आज भी प्रधानमंत्री ने जो घोषणाएं की हैं, मुझे लगता है कि ग्रामीण भारत को विकसित करने की दृष्टि से ग्रामीण क्षेत्रों में शहर जैसी सुविधाएं विकसित करने के लिए, जैसे एपीजे अब्दुल कलाम ने कहा था, ऐसे ही हम हाईटेक में भी उसी विगर से आगे बढ़ेंगे, ऐसा समझते हुए, ऐसा मानते हुए। और स्मिता जी जैसी जारू ब्यूरोक्रेट्स हमारे साथ हैं, और ये इनसाइड एंड आउटसाइड सब जानती हैं। तो क्योंकि इन्होंने सिस्टम में काम किया है कि जो हमारे विदेश मंत्रालय के प्रेजेंट और पास्ट जो ब्यूरोक्रेट्स हैं, उनकी भी सब ये जानती हैं। तो इसलिए उनको भी उत्तर देना होगा, और जो भी रास्ते में आएगा उसको समझाना पड़ेगा, और ऐसे समझाते बुझाते हुए देश को आगे लेकर के जाएंगे। नमस्कार।
Thank you so much, Ashwini ji. It is always a pleasure to listen to you. मुझे तो अश्विनी जी की बातें सुनने का सौभाग्य कई समय से है, और वो बस उनका जो एक दिल में जो देश की आत्मनिर्भरता के बारे में, तो आत्मनिर्भरता की बात तो आज ज्यादा हो रही है, लेकिन मैं उनके विचारों से परिचित हूँ, कई सालों से कर रहे। मैं आपको बताना चाहूंगा कि 20 वर्ष पहले जब मैंने IIT में एक इंक्यूबेटर शुरू किया था स्टार्टअप माहौल बनाने के लिए, उस समय से आज तक काफी देश आगे बढ़ चुका। आज देश की प्रतिभा जागरूक है, सब जानते हैं, भरपूर प्रयास हो रहे हैं, सबका कार्य प्रासंगिक भी है, ऐसे कार्यों की प्रतिष्ठा बढ़ रही है और उसकी प्रशंसा भी हो रही है। फिर सब इन प्रयासों से निष्कर्ष क्यों नहीं निकलता? तो जो अश्विनी साहब आपने कहा कि उसमें प्राण फूंकने की जो जरूरत है, वो प्राण फूंकने के लिए कई अलग अलग घटकों का एक साथ आना जरूरी है। और आपने बिल्कुल सही कहा कि सबसे बड़ी जिम्मेदारी सरकार की बनती है। सरकार, उद्यमी और भारतीय धनवान, ये अगर सब मिलकर काम करें, क्योंकि भारतीय पूंजी का इस कार्य में लगना बहुत आवश्यक है। आपने जो बात करी, पहले अमेरिकन और ब्रिटिश पूंजी थी, यूरोपियन पूंजी थी, अब चाइनीज पूंजी है। उसी तरह से देखेंगे टेक्नोलॉजी, एक समय में हम यूरोप से लेते थे, फिर जापान से लेते थे, फिर कहीं से आती थी। इस सिलसिले में मैं एक बात और कहना चाहूंगा कि हमारे यहाँ की जो टेक्नोलॉजी बनने की क्षमता है वो तो जग जाहिर है, और अब उसमें आगे बढ़ोतरी भी हो रही। केवल भारत को आत्मनिर्भर होने से काम नहीं चलेगा, ऐसी मेरी मान्यता है। आगे आने वाले दशकों में ये जरूरी होगा कि भारतीय उद्यमी अपना उद्यम, अपने जो प्रोडक्ट्स हैं या सर्विसेज हैं, वो पूरे दुनिया में फैलाएं, ताकि वो एस्टैब्लिश हो, खाली अपने देश में ही नहीं, सब जगह। तो ये कार्य करने के लिए पहले तो अपने यहाँ उन्हें प्रतिष्ठा मिलनी चाहिए। और मैं सोचता हूँ कि जो स्मिता जी ने और अश्विनी जी ने कहा, उसका सब लोग ख्याल रखेंगे और कुछ आगे कार्य होगा। मैं क्षमा चाहूंगा, लेकिन मुझे एक और कार्यक्रम में जाना जरूरी है, इसलिए मैं आप सब लोगों के साथ आगे नहीं बढ़ पाऊंगा। लेकिन स्मिता जी और अश्विनी जी, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। आपने बहुत ही पते की बातें करी हैं, और मेरी इच्छा है और मेरी मान्यता है कि सब participants will pay attention very carefully to the suggestions that have been made here. Thank you so much. I would now like to hand over the reins of this moderation, the subsequent activities to Samir and Gursharan, please. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Phatak.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Phatak, for spending the time with us. It's always enlightening to listen to you. And of course, Mr. Ashwini Mahajan has been with us. And thank you to Smita ji as well to make this discussion extremely lively and informative.